Hello everyone and welcome to our next review video for GL assessment. Looking forward to going through some homework tasks with you. So if you are watching this video, this is going to focus on the homework for lesson 3, which was the English lesson. Let's have a look at the slides. So we just bring those up. So we are going to be focusing on, this is Year 5 Block 6, and this is going to focus on the Week 2 tasks from lesson 3. Let's have a look at those homework tasks just to see what we had to cover in week 2. So we had to cover 2 comprehension tasks, one which was titled The Universe and the other one which was titled The Day Alfie Learned to Fly. So we're going to go through both comprehensions with you. It's going to be 40 questions altogether, and hopefully you'll be at home and you'll be able to work your way through this video and see how those answers are achieved. We also hope that you are timing yourself for both of those comprehensions as well. So we're looking at about 15 minutes per comprehension. If you're able to read the passage and answer those questions in that time, well done. If not, that's something you can work on and just work on your time management skills. I'm actually going to put Billy in the bottom corner just so it's easier for you to concentrate and focus on what we're covering. So let's have a little look at where this paper is and what pack it comes from. So we're going to be looking at test 5 in your packs, and this is going to cover off both of those comprehensions are in the same test, so this is test 5. We would have hopefully asked you as well to make sure that you'd got your multiple choice sheet alongside your paper, so we would have asked you to put your answers on that multiple choice sheet. It is worth certainly noting any practice papers you do now, you are using a multiple choice sheet. I've got a little video here that I'm going to put up first of all that we're going to be looking at the universe, but we thought it might be quite nice to just watch a little video which is all about the solar system. So I'm just going to copy this into the Google Cam. And you'll be able to watch this. Just bring up the Google Cam so you can see it. Just go back to the beginning and you can watch this video. So I thought that would be quite a nice video just for you to watch, just to give you an idea of scale, I think. But we are going to look down through the passage now titled The Universe. So if we just bring that up now, we are in test 5. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to read about all those different planets. And as you can see here, what I've done is I've just highlighted certainly where a lot of the answers are going to be located within the passage. So let's have a look down through the questions now and just see where those answers actually were located. So first of all, how many planets are there in our solar system? Well, the answer was D, and it was 8. And if we go back to the beginning, it says here, quite near the beginning of the passage, Mars is one of the 8 planets in our solar system. Question 2, which statement about Mars is true? Well, Mars is a rocky planet. And if we go back to the passage, you can see here it says in the second paragraph, Mars has lots of rocks and no trees. So what you'll find with quite a few of these questions, it won't say specifically that it's a rocky planet, but it does mention that there are rocks. So you have to basically infer the answer from what you read and look out for key words. Question 3, how is Mars different from Earth? Well, if we go back to the passage, you'll see here it says there are no oceans. Okay, there are no oceans. So again, we can tick that off on question 3. Question 4, according to the passage, why is it unlikely that there is life on Mars? Well, there is strong radiation. This is question 4. And if we go to question 4, or go to back to the passage, we will see that it mentions here, and this is the 4th paragraph down on line 16, there is radiation from the sun that would kill most living things. So that's why they believe that, according to the passage, it's unlikely that there is life on Mars. Not for certain, but certainly unlikely, as there is strong radiation that would kill most living things. Why is Mars red? And the answer is D. There is rust in the soil. And let's go back to the passage and see if we can find evidence for that. And it says here, they found out that Mars is red because of rust in the planet's soil. And that's why it makes it red. Question 6. What is the name of the brightest planet in our solar system? So again, if you couldn't remember reading this particular fact, you can go back. And we have to see here that it says Venus is the only planet that is brighter, okay, so if we go back to the first bit, it says it is also the second brightest planet, and it's referring to Jupiter within this little paragraph. And then it says Venus is the only planet that is brighter than Jupiter, so that makes it the brightest. So we know that the answer is B. Question 7, which statement about Jupiter is true? Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. And again, if we refer back to the paragraph here, it says Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. It's all about looking at the headings. This is obviously a non-fiction piece of text that's really worth going back and checking. Why do you think paintings of the god Jupiter often show him with a lightning bolt in his hand? Well, he was the Roman god who brought light. And again, if we went back to the passage, you can see right down the bottom here, paintings of the god Jupiter often show him with a lightning bolt in his hand. Moving on to question 9, how long is a year on Mars? And the answer is 687 days. So again, worth going back to the passage and confirming your answer. It says here, it takes Mars about 687 Earth days to orbit the Sun. It's worth reading the little bit that comes before it. The time it takes for a planet to orbit the Sun is called a year. So again, using all that information to get the answer. Which statement about the weather on Mars is false? The fastest winds are near the equator. And again, if we go back to the passage again, it does talk about the fastest winds near the planet's equator can reach speeds of up to 550 kilometers per hour. But in this particular paragraph here, we're not talking about Mars, we're referring to Jupiter. So it is important to use the evidence that we're given. So if we go back, we can actually say which statement about the weather on Mars is false. Well, it does mention there are no rainstorms, there are dust storms, there are high winds. Mars has large variations in temperature, but it doesn't mention the fastest winds near the equator because that was in reference to Jupiter. Who was H.G. Wells? And if we go back to the end of the paragraph here, it says that a play based on a novel by H.G. Wells. So the novel is a story, so therefore he's an author. So he's written the story. Let's go back and see if we can check the right question here. Question 11 is C, an author. Let's go move on to question 12. In 1938, why did some Americans believe that aliens were attacking the Earth? Well, they heard a convincing radio broadcast. So again, if we go to the last bit here, it sounded so real that many Americans really thought it was happening. So they really thought that there was aliens coming to attack. So they heard a convincing radio broadcast. Why do you think War of the Worlds was broadcast on Halloween night? Well, this is, again, reading between the lines and sort of making your own interpretation. But why would you think they would choose Halloween? Well, it's to make the play more atmospheric, more realistic. Question 14. For hundreds of years, astronomers have wondered if life exists on Mars. Why do you think people believe there could be life on Mars? Well, the landscape on Mars is similar to that on Earth. Again, that was mentioned within the text. Question 15. In which section of this passage can you find information about the length of a year in space? And there's actually two places. There's the section on Mars and there's the section under time in space. So in Mars, when it talks about seasons last twice as long because a year on Mars is almost twice as long as a year on Earth. And then under time in space, it talks about the time it takes for a planet to orbit the sun is called a year. It also says here, this means that a year on Mars lasts almost 2 Earth years. So there's plenty of references in those two particular paragraphs. So the answer is C, because it comes in 1 and 4. Question 16, what type of writing is this passage? And we have mentioned it already. It's B, because it's based on a non-fiction text. Now, the next set of questions for this particular comprehension are based on word meaning and understanding your knowledge of words. So, which word is closest in meaning to very harsh? Now, again, going to line 15 might just put it into context a little bit for you. So, if we go back to line 15, it says here, the conditions on the surface of Mars are very harsh. There is no oxygen. It is drier than any desert on Earth. So we need to think about if it's harsh, it's obviously not nice conditions to be in, or very difficult very difficult conditions for anything to live in. So the answer to being very harsh, or closest in meaning to very harsh, is severe. It's not horrible, it's not unbearable, it's not freezing, and it's not depressing. So severe is the best synonym here. We're looking for the closest in meaning, remember. Which word is closest in meaning to terrified? Well, it's petrified, so being scared. Being very scared. And again, you could go back to line 68 and see where that word was actually used. So we need to go to very much near the end. It sounded so real that many Americans really thought it was happening. They were terrified. They were scared. So that's up to question 18. Now we've just got the last two. Now answer these questions about words and phrases as they're used in the passage. What type of words are these? Well, of course, they are nouns, because they all begin with a capital letter. And then if we look at this particular question, it says, paintings of the god Jupiter often show him with a lightning bolt in his hand. And this is line 44. Which word in this sentence is a verb? Well, a verb is an action word. So if we have a little look at anything we could possibly put to in front of, and we can say to show. So show is the verb. Well done if you got C there. Well done if you managed to get most of those correct. Just record your score out of 20. Now, if you did get less than 20, maybe in the next comprehension that you're going to do, you can see whether you've got a little bit more. Let's go and have a little look at the next comprehension, and this is called The Day Alfie Learned to Fly. So really quite a fun passage, this one. This one is not a non-fiction. This is a fictional piece. And just like before, we've got lots of places where we've highlighted where the answers are spread out. And as you can see, they're very much spread out in the text. So let's have a look at them in turn. Make sure that we know why the answers are the right ones. Why was Alfie often in trouble? Well, if we look back at the beginning of the passage, it says, and his clumsiness. So he was quite clumsy. So C. At the start of the story, why did Alfie flap his arms? So we go back and have a look. He then started flapping his arms up and down casually, just as a way of keeping rhythm with his own tune. So initially, it was about keeping rhythm. On which day did Alfie learn to fly? Well, it was actually a Thursday. Now, it doesn't say that directly in the text, but if we go back, it talked about on Wednesday, he'd been thrown out of the technology room for trying to balance frying pans on his head, while Mrs. Beavers was demonstrating how to make the perfect apple pie. So the next day, however, he decided he was going to impress his teachers by coming to school early. So we know because it's the next day, and obviously the next paragraph leads into him sort of flapping his arms, then we know that's Thursday. So again, it doesn't tell you directly, but you have to work it out from the text. Question 40. When Alfie first flew, why did he fall back down into the chair? Well, he actually stopped flapping his arms. So again, if we go back to the passage, Alfie was so astonished that he drew his arms protectively against his chest and lacking propulsion means like energy to sort of get himself up in the air, fell back down onto his chair. So he wasn't able to get any propulsion, any momentum to try and get up in the air, and he drew his arms back into his chest. So that's really why he fell back into his chair again. So he stopped flapping his arms. C. Why did Mrs. Buckley send Alfie out of the classroom? Well, she thought he was lying. And if we go back to the text, when Mrs. Buckley came in and asked how he had got that bruise on his forehead, Alfie told her that he'd banged his head against the light. Predictably, he was thrown out of the class. Predictably meaning that that's a fairly obvious thing that was going to happen because he told a fib. Let's go back to question 42. Why did Alfie keep coming to school early? Well, he kept coming to school early to practice flying. And that's again proven in the text here. So on Friday, Alfie went into the classroom early once more. This time he was full, half an hour early. He stood on his chair, bent his knees, extended his arms like the wings of a plane and flapped them up and down. So it was to practice flying. Question 43. How long did Alfie practice before taking his first flight outside? Well, it was between 2 and 4 weeks. And again, it is worth going back to the text so you can see. And it says down here, a couple of weeks. And then there's also evidence here at the end of the month. So we can actually rule out all the other options based on that. So if we go back to the questions, a few minutes, no. 3 or 4 hours, a couple of days, no, because it's mentioned a couple of weeks. And it wasn't a couple of months. So it's between 2 and 4 weeks. 44. Who is Mrs. Armstrong? Well, it's Alfie's mother, because it refers to Alfie Armstrong in the text. Let me just go and prove that to you. See if I can find it. There we are. On line 45, Alfie Armstrong, he exclaimed, "You can fly." So Mrs. Armstrong must be his mum. What was the weather like on Alfie's first flying trip? Well, it was actually frosty. And again, we can prove that because if we go back to the text, it talks about icy rooftop. So just going back a bit, bouncing from one icy rooftop to another. Question 46. When Alfie's school discovered that he could fly, which of the following is true? Well, Alfie became very busy is the answer. Okay, when Alfie's school discovered that he could fly, which of the following is true? Alfie became very, very busy. He started doing all kinds of different things. So if we actually go back, we can see all the things he did. Had an extra essay on the history of flight, got lots of extra homework, mathematical equations on flying, write poems about birds, fetching balls, doing all kinds of different things. So he became incredibly busy. Now you'd have to deduce that from the text, which I'm sure you could have done. Which of these tasks was Alfie not given? Well, I've just read some of them. Extra maths homework, extra English homework, an extra history essay, and fetching the ball from the tree. But he wasn't not given fetching the ball from the rooftop. So the answer is D. 48. How did Alfie feel about being filmed? Well, he was unwilling. Now, you can work that out from reading the text. And it says here, But I don't want to go on TV, protested Alfie. It was to no avail. In other words, it didn't matter how much he protested, he was still going to have to do it in front of the cameras. How do you think Alfie feels when he's about to fly in front of the TV crew? Well, definitely apprehensive. In other words, quite nervous. He wasn't arrogant, wasn't ravenous, wasn't relaxed. Definitely wasn't relaxed. So let's go back and have a little think. Where does it say how he felt? Well, it says here, Alfie took a deep breath. So I think certainly he was quite apprehensive, slightly worried about it. 50. Why were the TV crew furious? Well, they had wasted their time because he wasn't able to fly. So they were quite angry by the fact that they'd come to film him fly and he ended up just falling in a heap and unfortunately hurting his ankle. Which of the following newspaper headlines is most likely to have been printed? Well, it's not boy amazes school with flying skills because he didn't fly in front of them. Head teacher praises young flyer. No. Girl sprains ankle in flying disaster. Boy flies to Paris and Rome. No, it was Armstrong flight is a flop. 52. Why do you think Alfie smiles at the end of the story? Well, again, you've got to infer, but it's because he has a secret. Let's just go back to the last line. It says, Alfie hugged the discovery tightly and smiled inwardly as he left class. So in other words, he's got a secret because no one else actually sees him fly. So, question 53. Which of these is closest in meaning to postpone? Well, it's delay, and that's on line 19. So if you postpone something, you delay it. Question 54. Which of these is closest to the description watching in anticipation? Well, eagerly waiting to see what will happen is another way of describing watching in anticipation. In other words, waiting to see what Alfie will do. Being keen and eager to see what will happen. 55. Select one answer that best describes this quotation. Word spread as fast as lightning. So this is a simile. Just worth noting the difference between a simile and a metaphor, for example. So metaphor, I might say the moon is a gold coin, whereas with a simile, you'd likely to use as or like when you're comparing two things. 56. Which of these words is a verb from this line? Well, it's soared. So again, you can look through all the other options, but soared is the verb there. Thank you very much for watching this video. If any of you have done the You Could, a huge well done to you. If you've managed to do that as well, and you were able to complete the spelling and the punctuation sections in this particular test, in test 5. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful to go through those tasks from week 2, lesson 3 English. Thanks very much, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in your next live lesson. Take care of yourselves. Thanks very much. Bye.